Hello, wonderful people. Welcome to Teach Christ International. I'm your host, Ruth Kerubo. On today's topic, it's all about critical thinking. Critical thinking. So, critical thinking is among the 21st century skills. Yeah. And this word is derived from a Greek name, kritikos. That is KRITKOS, criticals, to mean to judge or to discern. So basically, you can see that critical thinking boils down to the art of observing, wondering, researching. Then you get to analyze the various sources of information, and obviously they need to be credible sources of information. I think you've read more about media literacy. You also get to now reflect on the information that you have had. Then you get to evaluate and finally make a decision. So those are basically the elements of critical thinking. So there is the element of, you're analyzing information, you're interpreting, trying to make sense out of it. Then you're reasoning, and this reasoning should be logical. You can use a deductive and inductive means of reasoning or approaches. You can also get to use inferences, like you saw in the proceedings about the impeachment of the former deputy president Gachagua. And you could see critical thinking was very key. Like the arguments that were posed, some of them, was not direct information. They were just things they would make a conclusion based on the sources that they had analyzed. And uh, you could see how that critical thinking came into play in terms of justice, as well as uh, playing a role as far as career development is concerned, especially for the lawyer, the senior counsel Mutuse, who was the MP, I think, for Kitui West. Yeah. So, critical thinking is very important uh, in various situations. One, I've talked about the career. Yeah. Another thing, even when you're not in the corporate world, you've decided to be even self-employed, you're an entrepreneur, you need to make decisions. And these decisions, you just don't make them anyhowly. You make calculated moves, and these are based on having done a research. You went maybe and did a market analysis. You are able to project and predict what was going to happen. So yeah, you need critical thinking when making decisions. You also need critical thinking as a leader to make decisions, to be able to know how to deal with individual differences. You see, I think it's what someone like Solomon would call wisdom. Yeah. You see, he's presented with a child who is dead, and we have two mothers, and no, a child who is alive. Then we have two mothers claiming that their live child is theirs. So it happened that one of the mothers had slept on her child, and she had Solomon had to use wisdom, the Solomonic wisdom. So basically, you can see you need critical thinking to solve the problem. So that leads me to another thing, problem solutions. Yeah, so we need not to look at problems as a bad thing. We need to embrace problems so that we can provide solutions. Yeah. Another thing is that you need critical thinking for originality as well as credibility of your work. Especially you're doing maybe a master's thesis, you're doing your PhD thesis, maybe a presentation for global perspectives unit. You will need to have an input that is based on your critical thinking. After you now criticized, umefanya tahakiki ya vile vitabu, you need to come up with your own wording. You don't go to to AI, artificial intelligence, maybe ChatGPT, and you you copy everything, because that will lead to plagiarism, yeah, and that is a criminal offense, yeah, because you're infringing, sorry, on someone's intellectual rights, yeah. So another thing as to why you need critical thinking is as far as governing your life is concerned. You want to make friends, you want to make life-changing moves, you need to think critically, because like I said yesterday about peer pressure, is that you are free to make whatever decision that you want, but you're not free from the consequences thereof. So you need to think critically before you act, yeah. They say think before you talk. So think, pause to think, yeah. It will even develop your thinking capacity. Another thing is that it will stimulate your intellectual curiosity, because you're critical thinking and you will pose problems, you're trying to find solutions to them, so your intellectual curiosity will be heightened, so you will have to read more, you will have to ask more, yeah. Another thing, it helps us to form our belief systems. Sometimes you find that we had these authorities, and whatever they will say was law, and that was it. But the moment you start questioning things, you come to find a correct basis or a strong foundation as to why you should do ABCD or not do ABCD. If I tell you do not steal, why am I saying you should not steal? So get to ask questions, yeah, yeah, thoughtful questions. Another thing you need to think critically is that it will as a psychological detour. Yeah, you've heard about rationalization. Sometimes you have to solve the problems in your mind, in your brain. You've heard that battles are won in the mind. So you have to think critically. Yeah, maybe even someone has wronged you. You can decide to rationalize and think why they did ABCD. Maybe you can even develop empathy towards them. So, yeah. Another thing is that it enables you to have an action plan through clear thinking. You're able to even forecast the problems that you're projecting to happen. Yeah, so that is very important. Another thing is that it helps to position you as a solution provider, like I already said. And even when it comes to wealth generation, it's all about solving problems. The more problems you solve, the more money you make, the more knowledge you get. Another thing that critical thinking will help you is as far as research is concerned. It will be research for your academics, research for your business. It could be research to get money. It's a career. So critical thinking is a very important skill, in life, in your career, spiritual development, social. No, sometimes maybe you are talking even about healthcare. Why are things happening the way they are? We need to think critically about it and be able to solve the problems that surround us. So what can you do to develop critical thinking? One is observe. Be keen to notice what's happening within your environment. Maybe there's even pollution. You can start to see even someone literally, even as small as throwing a plastic bag, that banana, and how it affects us. You try to make a thesis on what exactly will be the ultimate disaster that will be generated by that simple act. So that is one. Get to observe. Number two, get to wonder. Be curious. Want to know why are things done the way they are. Maybe it's even when it comes to governance. Why are there procedures? The bureaucracy, you tend to ask. Mm. Another thing is be inquisitive. Ask questions, engage in dialogues to find a varied opinions. Another thing is get to network. Networking is the fastest way of getting information, and that relates to another 21st century skills, and that is collaboration and teamwork. When we come together, great things happen. When we come together, um, we tend to achieve more. We get to share ideas, and as idea diffusion happens, you find there will be socialization and change will happen. Another thing that you can do to ensure that you develop and master the art of critical thinking is by being open mindedness. Be open to possibilities. Think, like the Wright brothers. They were thinking, like, wow, a bird can fly. What about if we make a plane? And that's why we have planes, which have become a solution to our problems. Like right now, you can take a plane within few hours. You're in a certain country. You see, that time utility and place utility has happened. Instead of having to travel maybe on foot, which will have taken centuries, you can see it has become a lifesaver. Yeah. Another thing is read books. Read. You've heard that readers are leaders. Indeed, you can only be a leader if you're able to read. Read the details. And this reminds me of something as far as critical thinking is also concerned. You need to discern between fake news and good news. Fake versus original. Like, you need to ask the 5 W's: what, when, where, what. Then also ask how. Once you find answers to those questions, you're likely to discern and judge whether it's true or not. For example, you can hear someone saying Kerubo is dead. Okay, who's where is the information coming from? Yeah, maybe credible information that I'm dead, for example, should come from family members, and not just family members, but from also medical personnel. A doctor has confirmed, not just a first aider. Maybe I was involved in an accident, and you say I'm no more. No, it's all right, and you start putting me on obituaries, writing rest in peace. No, you must ask those questions. Where, when did she die? What was she doing? What did she say? Uh, what prompted that? Hmm? Yeah, you tend to ask those questions. You get to compose. You also not only get this information from books, from asking, you also need to investigate more. Yeah, get to ask those questions. Yeah, another thing I wrote is that you need to forecast. You need to think ahead into, like, for example, now that we have technology with us here, and sometimes there is obsoleteness, yeah, obsolete, yeah. What happens? For example, I have a computer. After some time, it has become dead. What is the danger posed? We need to forecast some of those problems. Like, yeah, we are saying technology is good, it will solve some of our problems. Now, we know that technology somehow has also affected the job market. So, about the people who will be rendered jobless, what is their fate? No, we need to predict and foretell what will happen, so that we can be able to provide solutions to such problems that are likely to emanate from a certain problem. Yeah. Ask for feedback. This is one way of developing critical thinking. For example, I've told you, no, I'll not give you this job. You need to ask why. Yeah. From there, you'll even be able to make an assessment whether it was correct or wrong. Yeah. Someone has rejected your thesis. You need to ask for feedback. Um, as you're going to defend that thesis and it has been rejected, yeah, it can be disheartening, but you need to be able to take feedback, yeah, that criticism as positive criticism, yeah, to help you improve on different areas. So you can also get to experiment. You have these thoughts in your ideas. The next thing should be to execute. Get to know, will it really work? You know, that's why we even do piloting as far as projects are concerned. Yeah, you have a good idea, maybe it's CBC. Before you roll it out, you have to do a piloting to see whether it is workable or not. Yeah, the feasibility of that project. So, how will I know that I've mastered the art of critical thinking? One, you should be able to ask questions. You should be able to synthesize knowledge. Another thing is that you should be able to make arguments and convincing arguments for that matter based on solid evidences that are there. You also need to be able to reason, you know, make logical assessments before you come to a conclusion. You should be able to make a conclusion based on the evidences that are available, and this is important because it is what has led to even increase of knowledge. You know, we have different schools of thought, like in psychology we have the humanistic, blah blah blah. So if we just had one person saying, oh, this is what has been passed from generation to generation, so we should stop at that, we'll have no development. But the moment we start embracing different schools of thought, we find that there will be an increase in knowledge, yeah, and that would even lead to development of a certain field, yeah. I don't think there's anything I've left behind. It's all about taking action. You also need to be able to evaluate and assess, build arguments, join dots, yeah. You also need to be able to effectively analyze information, make conclusions, as well as judgments. And in this age and era of information, it's good that you have critical thinking so that you can be able to discern what is true and what's not. What are people saying, and is it true or not? So it's really up to you, and that's why I loved a unit that we did in campus, UCU 103. This was university common unit. It was all about critical and creative thinking. So you get to have different perspectives, and you analyze them, you know, you reflect, you make essays. It's really worth it. So go ahead and build your critical thinking skills for your life to be improved, for your career, spiritual growth, everything. So stop just taking things at face value. Question, go deeper, yeah. Otherwise, I've been your host Ruth Keruba. Until next time, bye. Please subscribe, also share and comment. Yeah, otherwise, thank you. Mwah.